What exactly is emotional maturity? The fundamental core and point of emotional maturity is harmony and balance, achieved by self-realization. Neither selfishness towards oneself, nor selfishness towards others. It is a place within us, place of inner peace, happiness and precisely balanced true love. However, precisely because the border of truth is so thin, to comprehend it with our soul, we must walk that path of truth, redirecting our focus from the fixations of our ego and deepening our view of our inner self. And indeed, to create a world without fear or egoism, each of us must start from ourselves, honestly and with dedication initiate broader changes with our example. To correctly position emotional maturity, it is necessary to look at it in a holistic way. On the one hand, there is a science that dryly views us as something to be quantified and measured. On the other hand, there are spiritualists, that is, people who equate the struggle to silence the ego in our inner path with spirituality. At the same time, life in the moment, life in awareness and ego are attributed to somewhat magical and spiritual properties. The mere fact that we don't want to be an egoistic assholes or live a life of fear does not mean that we are automatically spiritual. It just means that we want to live a life where our ego will not go unrecognized and that we will not allow it to dominate and rule our private and business lives. The ego is a fact and an inseparable part of us. It is our teacher and a challenge to gain a clear and an objective insight into our nature and the world around us. If there was no ego, there would be no challenges that we could overcome. Thus, there would be no growth, no maturation, and no possibility to reach the pinnacle of evolution by maturing, that is, by overcoming that same ego. Our ability to silence the ego with our awareness, conscience, and courage is in fact our emotional intelligence. And the current level, the degree to which we have managed to overcome our ego and silence it, represents our emotional maturity. The pinnacle of maturity is love, the ultimate skill to create and share these experiences, and from that we get exceptional satisfaction and happiness as a reward. Therefore, all those who instinctively say that the meaning of life is love and happiness are right. Only that it is a consequence, not the cause. The cause is overcoming the ego and maturing. To know this pure love, we must understand that recognizing and silencing the ego and living in that awareness are natural human skills that, like any other skill or intelligence, can be practiced and developed. This series will provide direct and clear guidance that will show you how to overcome your ego, self-realize, and find clarity. But you will have to walk alone. By raising awareness, taking responsibility, or letting go of your beliefs. It is a way of life in which you rely on yourself and on your true potentials, in which you are sometimes forced to let go of other people and sometimes even yourself. Life in which your decisions are not guided by your fears or selfishness, but by truth. A life where you don't always put yourself first, but also not the last. And a life guided by criticism that will allow you to distinguish between those two things. So, how do you recognize a mature person? We identify a mature person most easily by three characteristics: joy, selflessness, and curiosity. Those three manifestations of the state of love are the simplest way to recognize a genuinely mature and a wise person. A person who overcame irrational ego fears and consequently catastrophic expectations, illusions created by the velvet shackles of material values, or denial of her worth by constant comparison with others and allowing emotions to take control and cloud her sight and hearing. It is essential to ask yourself whether you have joy, curiosity, and selflessness, and do you consider these traits important? It is also important to know what maturity is not. Maturity is not our success in school or college or our education. Maturity is not the amount of money we've made or the number of companies we've opened. Maturity does not mean the number of children we have raised or the years of life we have passed. Our IQ does not represent maturity, nor does the impressive amount of information we have learned in our lifetime or the number of books we have read. All this certainly helps in self-realization and developing emotional intelligence, but not in overcoming the challenges and the level we have reached in our maturity. That is why there are highly educated, wealthy, socially recognized, high IQ people whose values fall into the water the moment when they are faced with the most ordinary temptation. And then we discover they are selfish, greedy, or envious, and all their social recognitions lose their value. Even with a superficial look at our life, we can see the outlines of our emotional maturity. Take, for example, stress as one of the most frequently mentioned words today. What exactly is stress? It is our reaction to something that has happened in the past or even hasn't happened yet, and can be so strong that our brain can't distinguish between reality and delusions caused by ego fears. At that time, our body is constantly in the state of alarm and saturated with adrenaline, which causes strong stress that we cannot get rid of because it's not based on reality but imagination. For example, a manager gives us a task that we are not sure if we have time to do it. We fear a failure that hasn't even happened yet. This causes stress and reduces operability. We are afraid of another earthquake, COVID, or job loss. The level of worry and the tendency to catastrophize shows us our maturity. If we don't worry, it doesn't mean we ignore reality, but that only we live in present. When we mature enough not to worry, we will become better able to live in challenging times, if and when they come. Yes, it is true that the more prone we are to stress and emotional reactions, the more room we have for progress. However, what causes us greatest stress, fear, or resistance also brings us the biggest opportunity for growth. Whether we fear loneliness or change, trying these new experiences gives us a wonderful opportunity for growth. By overcoming these challenges, we will further mature, and this will manifest on our emotional immunity, stronger resistance to stress, and better emotional stability. Some other factors in checking one's emotional maturity are ego manifestations fueled by fears such as aggressiveness or passivity, selfishness or stubbornness, vanity, and similar traits. They together distort our image of ourselves and of the environment, and accordingly influence our decisions and life in general. That is why it is crucial in that first step to evaluate how susceptible we are to the state of ego. When evaluating maturity, it is crucial to understand that the event itself is irrelevant. Only our reaction bears importance. However, it's not just our reactions that are defining our maturity. The comfort zone defines it even more. As we said, the very meaning of life is a new experience, the experience of change. And on the other hand, the ego-driven fear of change is what defines us as much as the need for the new knowledge. Exactly strength of this fear that keeps us in comfort zone defines our maturity. The more open we are to change, the more mature we are. What weaknesses do you recognize in yourself? How do you deal with stress, and how prone are you to change? Finally, in addition to our reactions, manifestations, and tendency to change, a key part of the self-evaluation of our maturity is the assessment of our emotional intelligence. This is because our emotional intelligence is superior to all ego fears. Emotional intelligence does not include the intellect in the sense of technical knowledge and books read, but understanding and the ability to manage oneself, our emotions, and social skills. It may be in a stark contrast to the conventional sense of personal achievement. Emotional intelligence is something in each of us. And that something is our awareness, conscience, and courage. It is our ability to overcome our ego fears and achieve emotional maturity and all the rewards that comes with it. By solving ego challenges, we can say that we have silenced the ego. That is, we have additionally developed emotional maturity. For this, in our inner world, we can expect a reward as comprehending self-confidence and self-respect, and in our outer world, for example, better relationships. Of course, we cannot know what the manifestation will be, positive in this case, however, it will surely be. Thus, we need the awareness to recognize any manifestation of the ego, such as ingratitude, distrust, naivety, or greed. We need the conscience to recognize that this weakness is to blame and that harms us and our environment. Last but not least, we need the courage to face all the challenges, internal and external conflicts that will happen and thereby pay the price for solving one's weakness. By following the truth in this way, we can be sure that we will silence our ego, develop our maturity to unimaginable heights, comprehend clarity and live a fulfilled and purposeful life full of peace, gratitude, and love. In schools, of the 9 types of intelligence that exist according to the prevailing theory, all are taught except emotional intelligence. In school, you learn all possible types of knowledges, and the least about how to mature and how to self-realize. Let me repeat that. The only thing we came to do in this life to self-realize, we are not learning in schools. How many years have you devoted to learning some subject in school that we're not even interested in? And how much time have you spent learning about ourselves? Do you consider it important that your child develops emotional intelligence at school and gets to know himself, his path, and his purpose? There is no more important knowledge we can provide ourselves and our children for personal development and consequently for the benefit of society. Imagine that we all have developed emotional intelligence and are mature, that no one has ego challenges. If there were no ego fears, would there be a problem that could not be solved? In fact, would there be any problems at all? What is the use of being a great artist, linguist, athlete, engineer, or biologist if we are selfish, unhappy, and full of fears? Therefore, let's start together on the journey of maturation, because by becoming aware of ourselves, we will also make society aware. That is the only way to genuine and deep-rooted changes we have been waiting for so long. My name is Zoran Salopek, and in the next episode, I will talk about how we mature.